Are you playing all the right notes but still stuck with solos that never sound like jazz? Now, there are actually 3 jazz guitar rules every pro knows but nobody teaches, and once I learned them, my solos instantly started to flow like real jazz. So in this video I'm going to show you the 3 rules that I've used to help thousands of students go from just playing the right notes to actually sounding like a pro jazz guitarist. And the first rule immediately fixes something that completely ruins how you sound. And every jazz beginner gets this wrong. Pretty much every guitarist forgets that every note you play has not one rhythm, but 2, a beginning and an end. And this is the most common feedback that I give new students in my jazz guitar roadmap course. And it makes a huge difference for how you sound. The way guitar players think about notes is a bit like we think about a plane trip. You think about getting up in the air, but trust me, if you don't get back on the ground in the right way, everything is ruined. On guitar, it is difficult to play long, clean notes, and it is a technical skill that you want to master. Now, if you're coming from rock, it's kind of treated as a superpower, like Gary Moore is doing here. Obviously, this is both cool and expressive, but jazz is about rhythm, and long notes that fade out don't have as much rhythm as short notes that stop in sync with a groove. Especially when it comes to bebop-inspired jazz, there the ending of notes is very important. Check out how Wes solos, and especially how he plays the last note of each phrase. Hear how he ends all phrases with a short note. He doesn't let the note ring and fade out, and this is the opposite of most rock solos, and also something that pretty much every beginner has to get used to. You want to take control of the length of the note and not just end on long notes all the time. Short notes add rhythm and air to your solo, connecting it to the groove while also giving it a more natural flow. It makes the solo breathe and makes it more like singing. Now, here are 2 things that will help you nail this, and it's actually a pretty easy fix. Listen to jazz and pay attention to how they end their phrases. Now, Wes, as you already heard, is great, but really all of them are great to check out. Joe Pass, Kenny Burrell, Barney Kessel, Grant Green. You anyway want to listen to all of these guys. The other thing you can do is to take a song that you know really well and focus on ending phrases on an offbeat and with a short note. It will make your solos and phrasing sound 10 times better. For many students, this is a huge part of what stops them sounding like jazz, but they quickly feel the difference by practicing this. And I see this all the time with the students in the roadmap. Most beginners focus too much on what notes to play, but it's often more important how to play them, the phrasing and the rhythm. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that you should never end a phrase on a long note, but make sure that it's a choice. It has to be what you hear, not just a habit that's in your fingers. Another essential thing to learn is how to make your solo lines really flow so that your solos don't sound like random licks thrown together. Let's explore that. One thing you have to nail if you want to sound like jazz is flow. In jazz, solos aren't just notes sitting on top of the song. They have forward motion, they push the music further, like this. That's why a good solo feels like a story. You keep listening because you want to know what happens next. A solo without the flow is just random words and then some more random words. That's a lot less exciting. And the great jazz players were aware of this. Here's how Joe Pass describes it.
The secret to filling something up is not playing arpeggios or playing runs. It's actually playing runs, but it's actually like making sure that you make the connection to the next phrase.
But how do you get that flow into your playing? Now, there's a very effective way to practice this that you can turn into an incredibly simple exercise. Check out this phrase that really nails the flow. It's a section from a Joe Pass solo out of his Joe Pass guitar style book. After that, I'm going to break down how it works and how you learn to play like that. Joe's phrase is anchored on the heavy beats of the bar, and he is using clear chord tones. So he's starting on the 5th of F, C, and then moving up to the 3rd. And here, you can really tell how this entire phrase is really just there to get us to the next chord tone. So we go from the A up to the B flat, which of course is the flat 5, so the 5th of E half diminished. And here from this one, aiming for the flat 13 on the A7 altered, and then resolving that to the A, the 5th of D minor 7. The way you practice playing like this is to work on playing lines that end on a clear chord tone on the next chord. You want to think ahead about where the solo is going. Now, to keep it simple, try resolving a G7 to C major 7 by hitting the third of C major 7, E, on beat 1. E is then working as a target note for your G7 line. Now, the best way to get this into your playing is to start by composing short, simple phrases out of time, like this. And here you can really hear that direction towards the E. But you can also start on the root and then have the same kind of movement towards the target note. Or a short melody that doesn't have any chromatic notes on the 9th. And now that you have some shorter phrases, try to add to those and then turn them into longer phrases. Or this one, combining a B half diminished arpeggio with the chromatic enclosure. Notice that in these examples, the line also has a clear chord tone on beat 3, so in this case the root, and then of course moving to the third of C major 7. And that is also a part of what helps create that forward motion and connect it to the song. From here it becomes easy to work this into longer phrases and apply it to songs as well, while keeping the flow from one clear target note to the next. This is also one of the things that I help students master in the Jazz Guitar Roadmap, building the skill step by step while soloing over a jazz standard. But you have to watch out that you don't start sounding robotic and obvious with solo lines like this. That is what the next rule helps you fix, so that your solo lines don't sound too mechanical and boring. You just heard it, running up and down scales on arpeggios, even if you hit all the right target notes, still sounds flat and predictable. Great solo lines have more going on, and it's all about melodic direction. It's not enough to just simply run up and down, it's about surprising the ear. Check out how Joe Pass changes direction in this short phrase on a blues in C. Instead of playing everything as a predictable scale run, Joe is changing direction several times each bar. So first, skipping from the G up to the F, and then actually skipping down to a D as well, before moving to the target note with a few chromatic notes. Then just moving down to the next target note in a stepwise manner with a passing note. And then here we get another skip up, so from B flat up to A, and another skip down to F. And here again going to a target note on the heavy beat with a chromatic leading note, and then down the arpeggio, resolving to the A, but immediately also skipping up to the 5th C. This kind of line is much more active and surprising. It really grabs your attention while still hitting all the target notes and making the harmony clear. And it's way more interesting than playing something like this. But how do you actually practice changing direction in your solos to get this sound? Now, there are a few simple things that you can add to your playing right away. To keep it simple, let's stick with a C major 7 chord, because the things I'm going to show you here are very easy to move to other chords. First, you just need the basic ingredients. The C major scale, and of course the C major 7 arpeggio. Now, here's an easy way to get your melodies to switch direction more often while still making sense and not sounding completely random. Try a simple enclosure exercise. For each note in the C major 7 arpeggio, play a scale note above it and a chromatic note below. This gives you building blocks for each chord tone that automatically change the direction of the melody. Check out the exercise, then I'll show you how to add it to your own solos and level up your phrasing. Here's how you use it. Compose simple lines using enclosures, arpeggio and scale melodies. Check out this example, which is a simple enclosure around the first note of the C major 7 arpeggio. But if you start with a chord tone and then flip the enclosure around, you get something like this, which is actually a Charlie Parker favorite. Or maybe using the enclosure around the third of the chord, the E, that gives you this. Again, experiment with these ideas. As you've seen in the examples and in Joe Pass lines, Using enclosures helps you create melodies that don't just move in one direction. It takes practice to get this into your playing, but it's a huge part of what makes bebop lines sound interesting and melodic, not just like robotic scale runs. And here's the thing, you'll face the same challenge with chords. Don't waste time wrestling with complicated shapes that are hard to play. You'll sound way better if you focus on simple voicings that you can later expand on and that you can actually turn into comping and chord melody. And that's exactly what I cover in this next video, where I break down how Joe Pass did incredible things building on a foundation of these simple chord voicings. Check it out, learn jazz, make music.